Hey everyone, Alex Sanfilippo, your host here today, and I'm joined by my friend Chase Jarvis. Chase, welcome to Podcasting Made Simple.
Alex, thanks for having me on the show. It's a treat to be with you.
Man, I'm really excited about this. You wrote an incredible book titled Never Play It Safe, and that's what we'll be talking about today, and I want to kind of give some context here. First off, when I read the book, man, you've got so many quotables in it. I don't know if that's like the proper term, but like one-liners, things that I underline, highlight, and like circled a bunch of times. And man, this is just, it's an incredible gift that you created here. So I first and foremost just want to say thank you for putting this together. And I think that what we're going to put into the world today with this conversation is really going to serve the podcast hosts and guests who listen. So again, man, just thank you so much for doing this.
Awesome. Well, my love language is utility. So I want to be useful, and I'm a fan of the show, and having, been on both sides of the microphone in and around podcasts since 2009, my goal would be to be really useful. And there are some good lessons from my latest book. So I won't hesitate to share.
Thanks, man. I appreciate that. I didn't realize 2009. You're like a real OG in the podcasting space.
It wasn't even called podcasting. I had some other recordings up on the Apple platform then, and you used to get charged for more downloads. And so the more successful your show would be, you essentially got penalized for it. So it was it was the Wild West early on, but been doing it for a long time. And I think I've taken a few licks along the way. That's what these dark circles under my eyes are from. But plenty to share, and eager to help.
Cool, man. That's great. Thanks for paving the way and for making it no longer you pay for your podcast.
Oh my God.
I wouldn't have as many listeners. So thank you for paving the way.
Exactly, right? I remember and there was a video podcast that you'd had to pay for throughput on the downloads, and I was like, oh, note to self, do not do that anymore. That's expensive. And shortly thereafter, they changed it. But I think the takeaway from all this stuff is, regardless of how long you've been doing it, that we're in such a world today that it's very, very dynamic. Things are always changing. For every door that closes, there's two doors that open. And that's what I want your listeners to focus on. Like, now, don't let people tell you that anything's played out. You have your niche. You and your voice need to be a part of the conversation. The only, the best time to start was 5 years ago. The second best time is today. So,
man, well said. All right, I want to get into this book and this conversation. So to kind of give an overview here, I actually want to pull a quote that you said that really shocked me. You said, "I realized I've been living by somebody else's rules." Like, you're like, my life has been lived by what someone else wanted for me. To give an overview of what we're going to be talking about here today, do you mind sharing like how you came to that conclusion and why you even shared that in the first place?
Yeah, the first time I really became aware of it was, it's going to sound crazy, but second grade, Miss Kelly. So I had made my first film in the summer between first and second grade, washed cars, earned enough money for film, hired my friend's brother to shoot it, paid him $1, shot this film, screened it in the basement of David Trolson's parents' house, and actually made a profitable film. Made more in the screening than we did in producing the film. And so I rolled into second grade feeling pretty good. I had a comic strip, I had a stand-up comedy routine, a magic show, and then I overheard Miss Kelly during the parent-teacher conferences telling my parents that I wasn't that creative, and that all this stuff that I was doing was a distraction from school, and there was no room for selling comic strips in second grade, so I should focus on sports and academics. And right now, if you're not like poor second grade Chase, but the reality is I didn't actually feel bad. What I wanted to do was fit in. What I wanted to do was please Miss Kelly and my parents. So, like we all have done at different times in our life, I just adapted. And that was sort of the beginning of starting to live a life that other people wanted for me rather than my own. And again, second grade, what do we know? But turns out this is a pattern. And we come into this world wild and creative and have our own spirit. And the world, through media and the 20,000 messages that we receive every day, starts to influence us. And what's difficult is we are influenced by people who we love and respect and appreciate, but there's not a person listening who hasn't at one time or another been told by their career counselor, their parents, or their uncle that the thing that they're thinking about doing is crazy or useless or not valuable or whatever. So it's not an unfamiliar concept, and yet we so routinely go along with it, just like I did with Miss Kelly. And then fast forward, you think I'd learned my lesson. I won the award of the typical senior as a high school senior graduating. That was the award that I got on my class of 600 people. And I didn't know what that was, but I knew it wasn't good. I was essentially living as a cliche. And so I started to become, again, aware of doing the things that I was the captain of the football team. I dated a cheerleader. It was just the most cliche life ever. And yet, again, you think I would figure that out. But no, at some point, I was very, I believed deeply that what I should do is go to medical school instead of pursue professional soccer, or instead of pursue my dream of being a photographer, because at one point, my uncle told me that was a good idea. And if you wanted to make enough money, that you should be a doctor or a lawyer or an accountant. So, the pattern is well established. And what I mean when I say I was, sort of living life on autopilot, or living the dreams that I had out through other people's, belief in what I should be or become. It's not that I was, I'm doing this all wrong and have to change everything. I was terrified. I was unsure, I was unclear, but I had 51% courage and 49% fear. And that's the way it is. It's not like there's everything is obvious. It's not like what we should be in this life is shouting from the mountaintops, you should do this and never do these other things. It's a whisper. And what I have learned, what I've written about in my last 2 books, is the ability to pay attention to that whisper is our biggest superpower. It's our gift. And so right now there's someone who's listening and saying, wow, I get that. And everybody in my world, is not quite understanding my vision, and that's fine. That's the way it will always be. But it is your job to start to show up, whether you're doing that for the last, 20 years of your life, or you're willing to start today, is starting to do the things that you want to do, and believing that you can do them.
Man, that's well said. And in this book, what you're really covering is how to reclaim your creativity and your personal power in your daily life. And I think that's just such an important thing. And in the book, you cover 7 different levers. We don't have time to go through all 7 today. I picked out 4 for today, but I do want to let everyone know I will give you a spot to get the other ones. So Chase will have that, and I'll share that a little bit later. But so don't be like, oh, I'm being cheated, right? No, this is gonna be fun. We're gonna dive into it here. And so, for sake of time, I just want to go through these things, and we'll kind of we'll dive a little bit deep, go a little bit of an overview. But for everyone who likes podcasting made simple, we move quick with this stuff. So take some notes along the way. Lever 1, we're gonna get into right now, and this is attention. Real quick, this is, in my mind, this is a lost superpower. And Chase, I had a conversation with a mutual friend of ours, Jasmine Starr. She's actually who introduced us. And for anyone who wants to hear more on this topic, podmatch.com/EP/314. I think it's so important this topic gets repeated, because this idea of attention, once again, it's a lost superpower. And Chase, if you don't mind just kind of diving deep and talking about this a little bit.
All you have is your attention. And whatever you pay attention to equals the experience of your life. For example, just do this little exercise with me. Everyone who's listening, look around the room, or if you're driving down the road, look for red things. Just see how many you can count in the next 5 seconds. How many red items can you count? So I got this book cover here, the little, on the podcasting software, the little phone is colored red. There's a little, it's basically a fake flower outside of my desk window here. So I got 3. How many blue things did you see? You have no idea how many blue things you saw, because you were not looking for blue things. So you see the things you're looking for. And what that means is what you pay attention to is your experience. If that's the case, wouldn't it be valuable for us to be able to decide where we direct our attention, rather than have it pulled in all sorts of different ways? That, it turns out, is the master skill. If you deconstruct the lives of anyone who you care deeply about, who you think is doing their thing better than anybody else on the planet, I promise you, they know how to direct their attention. The cool thing is, this is a skill. It's learnable. Most people, they're aware of the benefits of meditation, as an example. But I'm not here to prescribe whether it's meditation, mindfulness practice, awareness, prayer, whatever. It is just the simple fact that what you pay attention to equals your experience of your life. famous story, a great book called Man's Search for Meaning, written by a legend named Viktor Frankl, who survived the Holocaust, chronicles his ability to pay attention to the best parts about his life through the process of living in 1945 in the Holocaust. Obviously, the most horrific experience you could have, and that's proof that the ability to direct our attention actually is exceedingly powerful. If he can do that under those circumstances, to be fair, he was a licensed, trained, professional psychologist, so he had a distinct advantage. But the cool thing is the ability to direct our attention is available to everyone who's listening right now, and it starts through some sort of a daily practice: meditation, mindfulness, awareness practice, prayer, I don't care what, or some or all of those things. But imagine if you could pay attention to what you wanted to see more of in the world. I promise it's there. I mentioned Brene Brown earlier. She says in a podcast that we recorded together, whatever you look for in the world, you will see. If you look for reasons that you do not belong, you will certainly find them. And the opposite is also true. If you are seeking and connection, you can see connection. You can see the world happening for you, not to you. If you can see abundance in your finances, that is also available to you. So, the punchline is great. Let's learn to direct our attention and watch what happens when you can pay attention to the things that you actually care and need and want in this world, rather than come from a place of lack or not enough as.
Man, that's good. The difference between success and failure in any endeavor is attention. And
That's Huberman Lab said that, right? Like,
yeah,
I love that podcast, by the way. He's Andrew Huberman's super interesting guy. That is literally a quote from him, and I think it was during a conversation between him and a Harvard psychologist. That's the difference in any endeavor, is your ability to direct your attention. Any endeavor. Powerful stuff.
Man. All right, I want to move on to lever 2 here. Lever 2, and this one is time. Something you said that really stood out to me that I think is one of the most impactful perspectives I've ever heard is that life is long. Can you explain time and what you mean by this?
Sure. Every one of us has heard the adage that life is short. And what's interesting about this is, again, so many of these things are counterintuitive. Like when I say life is long, it's almost feels like it's blasphemy, right? Like, wait a minute, life is short. We could all get hit by a bus tomorrow. Like, I absolutely, I get it. And it comes like the advice from Miss Kelly. She meant well, but it wasn't the best advice. The same is true here. Life is short. It turns out that makes us do a lot of stupid stuff. I can't tell you the number of 23-year-olds that I know who have been told that if they don't have it all figured out by 23 and they're not on their way and they're down their first path of their career, that they're blowing it. And that couldn't be further from the truth. What I see is that makes us do a bunch of things in a half-ass way. And rather than taking the time, listening to our intuition, our gut, our instincts, doing the things that we were supposed to be doing. I mean, I don't know who here is listening or watching right now has accomplished something meaningful, only to realize that feeling of accomplishment was so fleeting. Especially, or maybe it lasted a week or 10 days or a month or whatever. It's especially true if you're climbing the wrong mountain, right? So when we say life is short, it makes us run around and feel like we have no time to explore, that we have no time to make mistakes, that we have no time to pursue professional soccer like I did, only to realize that I really wanted to be a photographer, to stop climbing that mountain that others wanted for me and to climb my own mountain, the mountain of becoming a professional photographer. And ironically, that unlocked everything in my life as soon as I was able to determine that. So if we look at this through a lens of time, what if we took this idea that life is long and we could make some mistakes? I bet it would make you feel better about yourself. I bet it would allow you the freedom and the space to experiment, to actually discover things that you truly want rather than the things that everybody else tells you ought to want. So I do believe in sort of short-term urgency, long-term patience. I do not think that you can make all these decisions from the couch. I believe that no effort is ever wasted. You have to do things. Action is way more important than intellect. And yeah, there's a world where all of these things can coexist. You can go, 6, 12 months out of your way pursuing that career as a podcaster, realize that it wasn't what you were built to do, but in fact, you were meant to be an audio engineer. And you found the process of audio engineering through your endeavors as desiring to be a podcast host, because that's what, your friend who was one of the best in the world thought you should be, that you would be a great host. I believe in short-term action, right? In near-term action as a vehicle to discover this stuff. But where most people go wrong is that they feel like they have to have it all figured out. And I will tell you that, having spent a lifetime around some of the highest performers in the world, none of them knew exactly what they wanted from day one. They all had to experiment, and all of them stumbled in some capacity. It's this message that when we stumble, we've somehow blown up our entire life. Like, that's the toxic trait that this shows up as in pop culture. Now, the last thing about time is, when the cool thing about time is we've all had the experience of flow. When we're doing the stuff that we were supposed to be doing with the people that we love in an environment, you can look backward, you can connect the dots and find a time where this is happening for you. The cool part is that that's available to you right now, and success leaves clues. So if you're not sure what to do, try experimenting with some of the things in your past that have lit you up. And the magic happens when you are doing that. Time starts happening for you rather than to you. It's not this hamster wheel that's churning in the background like it feels when you're doing medial task for someone else's dreams. When you start doing the things that you were meant to do, it feels different and you experience time different. I'm on my 4th or 5th career arc, and I am only able to do that because every one of those has been something that I absolutely loved. And time essentially stands still for me when I'm doing this because I'm in the moment. It's absolutely beautiful. And that's always available to us. That's what, I think many of the world's top performers know. When they're doing the thing they're supposed to be doing, again, time happens for you rather than to you.
Man, we could just end right here. Thanks, everyone. I'm like, for real, man. That's like, it's just some mic drop. It's just pure gold. Thank you, man. And that perspective shift helped me a lot. So I hope that some of the guests and hosts that are listening today, this is also impactful for them. Moving on, lever 3. I'm excited about this one, intuition. And Chase, real quick, I actually want to share a story on this one that I think you'll get something out of. Man, I was like reading this, I was like, preach. The whole time I was like reading it, I'm like, this is good. For me, when there was 2 things I did with our software company, PodMatch. Number 1 is I decided to go all paid as a platform. So if we grandfather people in that were on a free account, I didn't be like, but anyone who's going to join from then on, no trial, straight to a payment page. And the other thing we decided to do was also pay podcast hosts who use the platform. So if they're using it, they're podcast hosts, when they're releasing episodes, we give them a cut of our profit. Both of these things kind of happened at the same time. And from some of these software gurus and people in this space, they said, you're an absolute idiot. Like, this is the worst. And they said meaner things than that. But I made it PG for us today, or G, I don't know. And but the thing is, and they're like, why would you do this? And I kept on saying, I don't really know why, but I know that I'm supposed to. And I would literally touch my chest and be like, there's something here that's telling me this is what I'm supposed to do. And I'm not here to say like we hit it 100%, it was perfect, right? But the reality is our company took off after we did those things. And still to this day, it's a strategy that people say separates us. The people that are joining our community are like, it's what separates you guys and really makes this thing special. And for me, if I want to trust that intuition, if I want to trust my gut, I would have probably just followed the conventional wisdom of free trial, or free forever, right? Find other ways to upsell and don't pay people, like keep your money, right? Anyway, I wanted to share that because I think it really relates to this, but can you talk about intuition a little bit more?
We've all had that experience. Actually, we've all had the experience, both sides of this equation, where we trusted ourselves, trusted our intuition, and realized that we were right in the same way that you just talked about, Alex. And we've also had the experience of going against our intuition about a person, about a date, about a business idea, about an opportunity. And we found out the hard truth. And ultimately, we've been told a lie. We've been told that our rational thought, that is bulletproof, that it's longstanding. And sure, it has been very valuable in advancing, the human experience. And yet the most recent science is very clear that actually rational thought is kind of fumbling. It's a little bit slow. It's prone to mistakes and errors. And that intuition is actually not valuable. It takes into consideration rational thought, but it is our bodies. We filter out, we get billions of data points every minute, and we have to filter most of those out in order to survive, in order to find our way to work and home and back and decide what to eat. But it's true that these things are stored in the body. This data that we might not be processing in real time is stored in the cells of our body. And that's actually why we feel it as a gut feeling. It is knowledge. It's just a different kind of knowledge. And I like to say our intuition is the most important thing that we know the least about. But we've all had the experience of trusting it and it working, and not trusting it and having something come back to bite us. What if we started to pay attention to that? What if you realized, and the goal is to start out with this in small, lightweight ways where you can experience what it feels like to trust yourself at the very basic level. Like, what do I want to have for dinner? Who do I want to spend time with tonight? What do I want to, it's not about, should I bet it all on black at the casino? And, it's not that kind of a bet. But by learning to train ourselves to trust and to listen, if you do, you are going to be by default more like the most successful, happy, and importantly, fulfilled people in the world. If you listen to, Jeff Bezos arguably runs very data-driven business. If you listen to him, he has said on lots of different occasions that the most important decisions that he made, not dissimilar to PodMatch, were based on intuition. Sure, he used some data, but he often actually went against the data because of a hunch. And if you think of these things as doors you can never walk back through again, it's terrifying. I get it. But what if you reframed all these elements of intuition as tiny experiments? For most of the things in the world, these are not decisions that you can't undo. They're not doors you can't walk back through. And it's in doing, though, and in seeing things that way, as running tiny experiments, trusting your intuition, what you start to see, again, you start to feel this pull, like a tractor beam. And when the compounding effect of your ability to direct your attention, doing the things that you're supposed to be doing, listening to that voice inside us rather than the ones that are programming us, I just invite you to watch what happens. Again, if you're deconstructing the lives of the people that you respect, admire, and appreciate, I 100% promise that they will tell you that it's 1,000 tiny decisions in the directions of their dreams that ended them where they want to be. It wasn't one big swing. There was never a door that they couldn't walk back through, or very rarely. And learning to trust themselves was arguably one of the most valuable things it's a skill that they trained in themselves. And that too is available to anyone who's listening. That's the thing about these 7 levers that I wrote about in Never Play It Safe. These are all things that reside naturally and natively within us. Think about it. Your attention, time, we're all swimming in time. Our intuition, these are things that we have been trained out of, not because there's some evil overlord, but this is just this is just what happens in late stage Western capitalism, where our attention is fragmented. Everything's moving very quickly. We're being told how to do everything, and we're like implicitly told to ignore that little voice in our head and our heart that tells us who we are. This is just a reawakening. It's just a revisiting this, and that's, to me, what's so powerful about it, is it's available to anybody right now.
This is a great transition to lever 5. We're going to jump
Sure.
down to lever 5.
Okay.
Play. Real quick, are you familiar with the study that George Land did, and it was about people's creative genius? Are you familiar with that at all?
Yes, I know just enough about that to be dangerous. I think I referenced it in my most recent book, Creative Calling. Not the most recent one, but the one before it, Creative Calling. Okay. I referenced that Land study. Yeah. But why don't you share more about it?
To share with everybody real quick. So this study by George Land, I wrote down the numbers here. It was 1,600 kids who were between the ages of 3 and 5, and they were tested to see how their creative thinking was, how they could actually process. And 98% scored the genius level. Did the same test on kids that were 10, only 30% scored genius level, and then at 15, only 12%. And then get this, for adults, 280,000 people they did this with, only 2% scored the genius level. And his whole point was, the conclusion he made was that being non-creative is a learned behavior. And it kind of comes from this idea of play, I believe. And that's kind of the argument you make. Can you talk about
Yeah.
play? And this is what I'm most excited about today.
Well, it's the most important work we do, right? And I think you nailed it. That land study, and specifically, go to the front of any first grade classroom and say, "Who wants to come to the front of the room and draw me a picture?" Like literally every hand goes up, and not dissimilar from that study. You ask the same question in sixth grade and 10th grade, and you get correspondingly miserable results the more that time passes. And again, what that tells us is these are learned behaviors and things that are trained out of us rather than what's naturally within us. And what if, they've also run this experiment. Hey kids, it's time to stop playing, but let's have as much fun as we can picking up the toys. That's clearly work, right? You have to walk around the room and pick up stuff, and you're ending a behavior that you're really excited about. And yet, turns out that a first grader under experimental conditions most of the time can choose to have a joyful experience, even cleaning up and wrapping up play. So that tells us that this is available to us at any point. And the same is true. I just invite people to run an experiment like folding the laundry. What if you showed up in front of that dryer fired up to have a good time? And the absurdity of this is on purpose, right? But what if you could open that, feel the heat that's coming out of that dryer, look at the colorful array, of all of the different fabrics, feel the warmth. Like you can get into anything. Absolutely. And something as mundane as folding clothes or emptying the dishwasher, if you choose. And it turns out that this is our natural state. Go back to that study, right? Our natural state is to be joyful, is to be present. And, anytime that we're thinking about something, we have anxiety about something in the future, or we're dreading a decision that we made in the past, those are things that take us out of that present. They move us further away from our natural state. And it turns out that that's where, that removes us from the best experiences of our lives, which when people report, it was around play, connection, joy, simplicity, focus, and the fact that we can choose to be playful at any time. The experiment, I've also run make yourself laugh out loud. You're like, no, I'm not going to do that. That's absurd. It's just, and then the doing of that actually proven scientifically to elevate mood. So this isn't just about play in the sense of how a first grader might experience it, but it's in returning to play, returning to things that bring us joy. And if you've lost that, I'm telling you, there's probably 50% of the people who are listening to this right now that can't tell us right now where they sit what brings them joy. That's terrifying, sad, heartbreaking. If you are that person, fear not, we've got a prescription here. There's clues. Success leaves clues. Look into your past. What lit you up when you were 12 or 14 or 11 or whatever? Who were you with? What were you doing? It turns out that's probably available to you. And if it sounds absurd to go, buy 50 baseballs and rope those baseballs around the park down the street from your house and just, go pick them up, I invite you to try. If it sounds absurd, go do that and tell me that you didn't have a good time, and I won't believe you. Again, the fact that we can choose an element of levity, that we can choose that our natural state is to enjoy the people we're with and the things that we're doing, even if it is considered work. This is the advantage of working on something that you love, whether you're following your passions or whatever, sort of by whatever mechanism. Doing work that you love makes you more playful, when you're more playful, you're more creative. When you're more creative, you're more successful. When you're more successful, that is certainly not the only piece, but it's a big part of being fulfilled. So it's easy to see, when we sort of squint and we can see through some of the cultural trappings that we are all a part of as, again, just growing up in late stage Western capitalism. We can get away from that just long enough to sort of unlearn a lot of these patterns. Man, it's really interesting what's available to us.
for the sake of full transparency for everyone here today, this is the lever that I really struggled with. And I didn't know it. Like, I just kind of lost my way and didn't mean to. I can remember when I first was doing some solo content and stuff like that, I used to like make jokes when I mess up. I wouldn't like post bloopers anywhere, but like I'd make fun of myself. And I don't know what happened. Like I said, I just feel like I lost my way a little bit and forgot. I mean, I love what I do, and I think I bring a lot of joy to it, but I didn't think about playing with it. And since then, I've already made some shifts, and I started making fun of myself again. I make mistakes, and not like, oh, I'm gonna beat up on Alex. It's just like I'll make funny noises. And my wife, we work in the same place, so she can hear me in the other room, and she'll just start laughing. And she's like, "Do you even want to do that right, or do you just want to mess up so that you can make fun of yourself?" I'm like, like it's a combination. But Chase, thank you for pointing this back out to me, and for everyone who's hearing this, maybe play isn't the thing for you, but it's probably one of these levers because we've all got work to do. And real quick here before I ask for a final thought from you, Chase, I just want to mention, I told you all there'd be a way for you to get the other three and to dive deeper on these. I just want you to go to chasejarvis.com. On that page, you'll either be redirected to the book or you will find it very quickly. I encourage you, there's an option there just to get the first chapter. Please grab that at the very, very least. But I'm telling you, I think like me, you'll be really blessed by the entire book. So that's chasejarvis.com. You will find the book there. And I think that this is really going to help you grow in your creativity and your daily power, reclaiming that for yourself. So Chase, again, thank you for this, man. And as we end today, I want you just to share the story real quick about how this is not the book that you were supposed to write. Give us your final thought for the day, and let's land this thing.
My final thought for the day is what you are experiencing when you get this book is the effects of all of these different levers on my own life. And the story that Alex is referencing is just 10 weeks before the draft of this manuscript was due. I'd been working on it for 13 months, writing actively, scripting, note-taking, researching for 2.5 years prior to that. And just 10 weeks before it was due, I threw it all in the trash. And the obvious question is, why? Why would you do that? And it was the awareness deep down inside that this was not the book that I was supposed to be doing. It was not dissimilar to all of those tiny betrayals that I shared about my career choices to become, about avoiding my desire to become a photographer or getting talked out of, doing all that fun creative stuff from Ms. Kelly in second grade. I was betraying myself again. And I was writing the book that everybody else in the world thought I should write, that the publisher and my agent and even the people that I should be writing this tidy book that sits at the intersection of creativity and business. And something felt off. And the last 4 or 5 weeks of that journey before I threw it all in the trash, I had a little sticky note that I put in the corner of my monitor, and it said, "Don't play it safe." And every time I was writing the summary of a chapter or a little concluding line, I was realizing that I was betraying myself. And it's not an accident that became the title, Never Play It Safe. But in doing so, in writing of the book that I was supposed to write, in sharing all my experiences, that, look, it's always 2 steps forward, 1 step back. That's actually the process working. And when I deconstructed my life and the life of everybody else that I knew who had done work or had lived a life that I was really inspired by, there was this element, a desire to, avoid the safe path. The safe path, safety is an absolute illusion. And so it was in trusting my intuition. If it was learning to approach this in a new and playful way and directing my attention in the way that I knew that I was supposed to. And I was, working against that in trying to do the things that everybody else wanted from me. That's when the magic happened. So I want you to know that I'm not immune to falling into the ruts that we all fall into. And yet that's what I've tried to do in this book. Write a book that's an easy reminder with very, very actionable tools. I mean, that's this is a very practical guide. So I want you to trust that in rewriting this book just 10 weeks before it was due and having it go instantly to the top of, 4 of the bestseller lists, it's not an accident. And this is available to you too. And my hope is that I've provided a blueprint in that with the book.
Chase, I really can't express how thankful I am that you forsake a good book for the sake of one that would actually leave like a real legacy. And that's what you've created here. So thank you for not playing it safe. Thank you for not doing what was expected of you. And thank you for spending this time with us today, man. I really, really appreciate you.
51% courage over 49% fear. You never have to be 100-0. That's a myth. And I wish everybody out there the very best.